Bill from the future here. If you have a limited amount of time, I recommend skipping round 1. My opponent plays really slowly, and it really doesn't showcase the things that this deck can truly do. Enjoy the show. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com and we'll take a look at them a little bit later on. Today we're going to be playing with a donation deck list courtesy of Hyperlink, although the design comes from one of my Discord members actually. So the folks in my Discord have been working on trying to crack the initiative, and I think everyone is trying to do that. But we've been exploring some non-traditional builds, some mono black builds, and Musou, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask how to pronounce your name again before starting to record, came up with this exact deck list, which kind of plays off the scam strategy that you might see in other formats. So we're going to attack from a couple of different angles. Number one, we can blink our initiative creatures to continue to go through the dungeon, or we can use Malakar Rebirth on them, which allows us to bring them back when they die. Traditionally, in other formats, especially with Grief and Fury in Modern, you kind of use these with these evoke creatures so that you can evoke, get their initial trigger, blink them, get a second trigger, and they stick around. So we're going to have these cards to do the thing, so to speak, with Solitude and Grief, while also having a whopping 16 initiative creatures in the deck list, with Passageway Seer and Vicious Battlerager being the other initiative copies. Note that if you are playing Paper Magic, Ravenloft Adventurer is another card that you can use in the 4 mana slot. For this deck list, it's probably better than Vicious Battlerager, just kind of generally speaking. As far as the sideboard goes, it's very traditional, right? We have some Deafening Silence and Leyline of the Voids for the combo decks. We've got a couple of Thoughtseizes to kind of help patch up some tough matchups, and just a few cards for fair decks. Note that we are hoping to just bury fair decks with all of these initiative creatures backed by some blinky nonsense. Of note here, with these modal double-faced cards, these can be imprinted under Chrome Mox while also helping us to make land drops, but these lands do come at a cost, either a lightning bolt to ourself or entering tapped when we do play them as lands. We have a ton of mana acceleration here between Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, and Dark Ritual, as well as Chrome Mox. Since we have Dark Ritual, we are not playing the Lotus Petal that is often indicative of these deck lists. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the league and see how it goes. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay, I don't think this hand quite works. I don't have the black mana to cast this Dark Ritual or my initiative creature, and I don't think I'm interested in going all in on a Grief. I'm gonna think about it for a second. So on turn 1, I can play Grief, take a card out of my opponent's hand, ephemerate that creature, take a second card out of their hand, have a 3/2 menace, and then ephemerate it again after attacking. Maybe this is better than I think it is. Am I wrong? For science? Yeah, fuck it, for science, let's go. I've never tried a legacy hand that looks like this, and although I think this is probably a mulligan, this is an interesting enough situation that I think I'm willing to just go there. Uh-oh. This is a blue-black Reanimator? It is Hogak. My Grief-based hand is looking a lot less cute here. There is a Swamp, which complicates this hand, as I now have turn 2 Vicious Battlerager as a thing that I can do, and I can start blinking it. Is that going to be better than multiple Griefs here? Kind of got really hard to play. I think I do nothing. I think I just play Vicious Battlerager turn 2 and see where that goes. That's very awkward though. Like I kind of kept this hand committing to a certain line, and then based on the matchup profile, like griefing my opponent into oblivion isn't the best versus like recursive threats that are graveyard based. Maybe I'm wrong and I still should just like grief my opponent. Alright, fetch away. I did really want to play out this hand with the grief based line just to see how it felt though. That was very conceptually interesting to me. Good old Dark Ritual into Vicious Battlerager. Now my opponent can take the initiative back on their turn at the loss of a creature. So we have 4 basic lands, and I've pulled all of them from the deck. I've drawn 3 naturally and fetched 1 out. That's not going to be the norm. And like that was part of the reason why the opening hand was awkward in the first place, was because I had those multiple basic planes. Yeah, study away. Vengevine is in the yard. Okay, there's a Verdant Catacombs for a Dryad Arbor. So this is going to be tapping 3 creatures plus exiling a handful of cards from graveyard to bring back the Hogak. There it is. I wonder if my opponent could have played their turn better. Like, they had a fetch in play, and yeah, I'm just curious if that's how this turn was actually supposed to go. I believe I'm actually interested in scrying here. I would like to look for a Solitude. Those cards are not named Solitude. That card, however, is named Solitude. I can probably just do all of this on my opponent's turn. This does have flash. So let's just make a land drop. I'll hold this back to help hold the initiative. And I'll call it a turn. Fishing for Solitude there was so good. My opponent is playing their lands out in weird spots where I feel like they should be waiting until after combat for Bloodghast based reasons. Yeah, see, like there is a Bloodghast going in. Alright, they are only coming in with 2 creatures here. I'm interested in just blocking this one. Let's evoke the Solitude. And the way that I stack these triggers does matter here. The evoke needs to be on bottom, and the exile needs to be on top in front of it. So we'll take out the Hogak. And I'm interested in ephemerating the Solitude here. It comes back. I will take out the Gravecrawler here. Just want to get rid of the recursive elements in case that's something that becomes relevant later with something like an Altar of Dementia. Gravecrawler in particular can help a Vengevine get into play. Coming back to what I talked about earlier, my opponent could have waited until post-combat to play Polluted Delta, and then they are not forced to crack this here. Bloodghast comes back with the landfall trigger. Okay, there is an Altar of Dementia. The Altar specifically means that I can't really permanently get rid of creatures, which is a little bit annoying. Means that I'm probably using my Ephemerate rebound on Vicious Battlerager instead of Solitude, but we'll see. Okay, they are gonna try to go deeper here. There's a Bridge from Below, which is very good. They can float a mana, sacrifice the Dryad Arbor if they want, and convert it into a different creature. I do have evoked creatures, including an evoked creature in my hand, so I have some things that I can do here. But it looks like we're just calling it there. Let's venture and or take the stash going towards the bonus creature. Take out my treasure token. Rebound my initiative card. Again, Solitude on Dryad Arbor is a little bit less cute here than normal because of the onboard Altar of Dementia. This does mean Throne of the Dead 3 is just a thing that is happening next turn. Or this turn? This probably just hits another initiative creature. It could hit something like a Grief. I believe I am fine with just casting this now. Holy density of initiative cards, though. Alright, let's see what we hit off Throne of the Dead 3. Oh, okay, I picked this one. Man, the top of my library was very bad there. And again, this is a rare time where we have all of our basics in play. So, unfortunately, we're not getting any toys here. I'm fine attacking with the Solitude. If I trade, cool. If I deal damage, cool. If my opponent like blocks and sacks with Dryad Arbor, like that's fine too. Let's see where this goes. Since I have the initiative, Pathway Seer is just going to start ticking up and becoming larger and larger. Biggest thing that I potentially have to worry about is my opponent going infinite with Hogak, which can happen. But they've played a little sloppy so far, so I'm not the most worried about that. Alright. 2 creatures in play. Alright, we are sacking the Bloodghast, making a zombie, and milling a few things. There is a Dread Return. There goes the Dryad Arbor. There's another Bloodghast. Very relevantly, if my opponent had kept that other fetch land in play, they could be returning 2 more Bloodghasts this turn that they just can't now. Alright, there is a Hogak. They can now sack the Hogak to the Altar of Dementia. Alright, they have cast a Dread Return to get another Hogak into play. And now they're going to sack the Hogak, milling a handful of other cards. The Hogak is going to return here, as well as double Vengevine and a Gravecrawler. I imagine that my opponent will get to kill me here by milling me out, but my opponent is playing very slowly here, so that's a thing. I think at this point, for the ease of viewer content, I'm going to go ahead and skip until the end of this turn. Okay, my opponent has repeated the Hogak loop a bunch of times and is now crashing in. I'm not going to let them take the initiative. I can go ahead and make this block safely. Actually, I guess I could let one of my creatures die and then get rid of their bridge from belows. That's just better? It might just be better. I make blocks that don't result in both of their creatures dying intentionally. So my opponent should sack this Vengevine here so that my creature doesn't die. Okay, seems like they figured that out. And we kind of bounce off each other in combat damage. Okay, I'm pretty sure my opponent can mill me out. Like, I didn't do the math on it, but I think I should be dead. I need to forge here. I think I need to put counters on lifelinkers so that I have some chance at stabilizing my life total here if my opponent doesn't infinitely combo me off. Put it on Solitude so I can have multiple things that live through zombies. Although maybe Solitude's a mistake for if I draw Ephemerate. This is my best Ephemerate target. That is another passageway Seer. So I'm guessing my opponent doesn't know that they can mill me out. And if they don't know that, I guess I just play towards winning a fair fight. So make a land drop, play another lifelinker, retake the initiative again. I'll trap my opponent so I can just draw a card if there is a next turn. I don't really think there should be, but I didn't think I was supposed to get a this turn either, so there's that. And then my creatures get +1/+1 counters at end of turn. So I'm currently in like a Schrodinger's life total situation where I may or may not have like 10-ish more life, depending on whether or not my opponent successfully removes the things that I block during combat. Okay, there is another bridge from below there. Okay, they are sacrificing a Hogak. Alright, the Altar of Dementia does target me this time. So they're going to go ahead and replay Hogak, and they can go ahead and mill me out. I think I'm fine showing them my deck list. Like, it's very clear what I'm doing here. They can mill me out. I will just grind that minute off their clock, as boring as this is for the start of a video. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the end of the turn here. Okay, at this point, my opponent has fully mulled me out. However, they are still continuing to do things for some reason. Alright, we'll take the initiative. I will go to Archives. I will draw a card. And I shall meet my end with dignity. Okay, we need to take 7 minutes off my opponent's clock here. Assuming I don't get immediately run over, that should be relatively easy to do. We have some good sideboard options in Leyline of the Void, with Swords to Plowshares and Plague Engineer to a lesser extent being good. Deafening Silence technically does stuff, but I don't think I want to necessarily go that route. Grief is kind of awkward versus my opponent, since a lot of the things that I would be taking from their hand will just come back. I think, despite the fact that evoking a creature can remove Bridge from Belows, that Grief is just going to come out for Leyline of the Void. And once I do that, Ephemerate becomes a little bit less attractive. I maybe don't need to play the entire suite of 16 creatures here. Like, Vicious Battlerager is my weakest one. And consider just dropping a couple of these to play Swords to Plowshares and or Plague Engineer. I think I want to drop 2 for Swords to Plowshares and call that good. It's possible Grief is better than Ephemerate. Don't have matchup experience here to really know. Leyline turn 1. Chrome Mox, Imprint, Malakar, Rebirth. Marsh Flats, Dark Ritual, turn 1 season, Dungeoneer. This is a keep. The second Chrome Mox is pretty awkward, but this should spiral out of control pretty quickly. So, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Malakar, Rebirth, Marsh Flats, fetch, grab a Scrubland, Dark Ritual, season, Dungeoneer. We start doing this whole initiative thing immediately on turn 1. I suppose I am more likely to need more white pips than black pips, although I don't really expect to need more of either, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And here we see my opponent, like, accepting the fact that they have been playing slowly and just conceding immediately in an attempt to win the game where they are on the play, which I think is valid. On the draw, my Ephemerates become slightly worse. Ephemerate Solitude is still really good, although I'm a little light on white cards. Do that consistently. I still think it's fine. This opening hand is not exciting to me. It does not do anything on turn 1 or 2, and it's really important for me to do stuff early, as basically the only way that I can lose here, given the pace that my opponent is playing at, is just not playing a game of Magic. Ooh. This is a tough one. I can keep this and play double Leyline of the Void, but then not really have anything else to do. If I draw any white card, I can Ephemerate a Solitude and take out my opponent's first few cards. It'll be pretty bad against Force of Vigor, though. There's also some portion of the time where I just don't draw lands and I die to a 2/2. But I'm incredibly likely to either draw lands or white cards, both of which improve this hand. This is a reluctant keep. A very reluctant keep, but I think I'm happy enough with this on 6 on the draw to keep it. What we got going on? We've got a Gravecrawler. Season Dungeoneer is an okay draw. That means that I can do Solerate. I can do Solerate nonsense. Okay, no immediate Force of Vigor. There's a Bloodghast from my opponent. I think this is a juicy enough time that I just go for it here. So let's fetch, grab the Scrub, evoke Solitude, pitching Season Dungeoneer. Evoke trigger goes on bottom. Solitude the Gravecrawler. Give my opponent some life. Ephemerate my Solitude. When it comes back, get the Bloodghast as well. And we've cut my opponent off the graveyard while producing a very fast 3/2 with lifelink. I'm not interested in ephemerating again here, so we'll just say no to that one. Alright, fantastic. We've hit a land drop, and I'll crash in with my 3/2. Opponent's at 21. Alright, they do have the Force of Vigor, so they can turn their graveyard back on. They are now in the red on time, though, and I have taken out 2 recursive creatures. That's not a great position for them. Bloodghast, notably, does not block. I'll just go ahead and continue to crash in here. I don't need to protect the initiative yet. And we can go ahead and play this as a tapped land, call it a turn. Opponent notably does not have blue mana yet. Another Gravecrawler is okay. Again, this card cannot block. So I am probably coming out ahead in terms of life totals on these exchanges. Alright, another Leyline's not bad. Once I find another land, I am going to have to think about whether or not it's going to be better to play my initiative creature or just play out the Leyline. I think the answer is play out the Leyline. Like, I am doing fine in a fair fight as of right now. I will take 4 during punchies. Going back to 22, I'm effectively only taking 1 damage per turn cycle here. So it is really and truly not bad. Another Solitude is a medium draw. It's not what we're looking for, but A lot of damage has been done to my opponent here, just in terms of, like, starting the game with Leyline and then removing their first 2 creatures. Alright, Stitcher Supplier is the sort of thing that can make this scary out of nowhere. But relatively speaking, my opponent has whiffed there. I will take 4 in combat. Going to 21. We'll see what I draw. It is a swamp. I believe this is a time where I just cast the Leyline first. So let's go ahead and fetch. Oh, opponent, you do not have the time to be sitting here. Pick up a scrubland, play a swamp, drop a Leyline of the Void. Once that is in play, I am comfortable attacking with Solitude, as my opponent blocking with Stitcher Supplier doesn't do the thing anymore. Although my opponent might still just go ahead and take the block, or it's possible they have a second Force of Vigor, but they do not. Opponent's got something for 2 mana. They've got a Boseiju who endures. Is fine with me. I'll pick up basic planes. And now I can hardcast a Solitude. I will happily take 4 points of damage here. Going to 19. Oh, Seasoned Dungeoneer is also really strong here. I think just holding up the Solitude is my best play. Yeah, I think just holding up the Solitude is just going to be the safest here. I can introduce the initiative to the game a little bit later. My opponent's just got 2 onboard creatures. I'd rather just kind of keep things in check over there. Alright, they're crashing in. I'll go ahead and hardcast this. And we're done here. Okay. That's not an exciting game of Magic in my opinion, but it is what it is. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is a deck building website for Magic the Gathering that has a lot of really cool functionality. So if you are looking to store your decks online and be able to subdivide them into all sorts of folders and organizational systems, this site may be for you. In addition to just storing deck lists, you can also keep track of which cards you have by clicking nice little bubbles next to the cards. Okay, I think my hand is going to be a keep here. I've been playing Initiative creature on turn 1. Is probably my plan. I'm probably Chrome Moxing Ephemerate. Woohoo! Yeah, Pithing Needle at Wasteland. That is indeed what's happening. We are playing against a Dark Depths deck of some kind. Ancient Tomb. That lets me play a second Initiative creature on turn 1. So, I think the starting plan is the same. Chrome Mox, Ephemerate. I think I play Swamp, Dark Ritual, and then a Battlerager. I'll pick up a basic Plains here, and we'll call it a turn. I get to Forge and Trap next turn, and while Vicious Battlerager isn't necessarily the fastest clock in the world, hopefully we can race a Merit Lodge. I am planning on doing Forge and Trap, unless my opponent is threatening an immediate Merit Lodge activation, in which case I might Lost Well looking for Solitude. Urza Saga. That's okay. I think I'm going to go down the route that tries to kill my opponent here. Let's attack with my 3/7. This is notably a slower clock than like a White Plume Adventurer. And I think I do play Ancient Tomb here. I don't have any way to gain life in the immediate future. So I think keeping my lands around so that I can get to like 5 or more mana to just play a Solitude without losing a land is probably fine here. My opponent will lose 5 life to Trap, going to 12. My opponent can do some cute things here. They can copy my Ancient Tomb if they want. They can copy an Urza Saga if they want. Yeah, they are going to copy my Tomb. Urza Saga ticks up. Now, the thing here is that blocking these creatures isn't necessarily the most profitable thing in the world. Now, a 2020 is coming. Get 2 looks at a Solitude or an Ephemerate effect. White Plume Adventurer is another look. For a Solitude, Hmm. This isn't quite gonna work with the timing that I want unless my opponent messes up, I think. So let's go ahead and bash in with these creatures and see what my opponent does. Alright. They're going to 8. Let's play a White Plume Adventurer and see what Throne of the Dead 3 can do for me here. Top 10 cards, a Seasoned Dungeoneer or another Vicious Battlerager. Take the Seasoned Dungeoneer. I re-enter the Undercity. I'll grab a basic. I will play out a basic Plains to represent a Swords to Plowshares. I believe that my opponent is obligated to make their Merit Lodge here. And indeed they do. That is unfortunately going to beat me here. But I'll untap my 3/7s. Oh, right, I completed a dungeon, so I get to untap everyone. See what they search for with Urza Saga. They technically should have floated a mana here. We're finding a Mox Diamond, sure. Forest is fine. Unfortunately, though, I got nothing. GG's. You're one turn cycle short of lethal there. And this is one of those times where having the other initiative card, Ravenloft Adventurer, I believe, would be very nice over Vicious Battlerager. This is just a slower clock on its own. Generally speaking, I want these 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares, and I probably want Thoughtseize to take Tutors. Solitude and ways to blink it sound good. I probably want to keep Grief. As we saw there, Vicious Battlerager is, I think, the weakest link, and I think I will go ahead and play Thoughtseize and Swords to Plowshares over them. Okay, what does this hand do? I pitch a Grief to Passageway Seer, and I Malakar Rebirth it, and then by drawing a single mana source, I can also start the initiative game. I think this is fine. After my opponent mulliganed once, this probably hurts. So, pitch Passageway Seer, evoke 1 on bottom, make you discard. This is sort of interesting. I think I want to take Elvish Reclaimer for sure. And then let's rebirth this Grief. So it dies to the evoke trigger. My opponent says you're playing the deck I wanted to record with today, but I couldn't get the cards. Alright, so let's Grief the second time. And I think I'm actually going to take the Green Sun here over the Sylvan Scrying. My primary reason for that being that I just don't want my opponent to be able to put a body on board and threaten the initiative. If I had a white card, I would absolutely just leave them with is an exploration. Sure. That is a nice tempo swing in my opponent's direction. Seasoned Dungeoneer means that I have a white card to pitch to Solitude. But unfortunately, I do not get to play an initiative creature this turn. Opponent's at 17. No. He's trying to prevent one of those from getting green sunned out. I am not willing to just immediately go all in on removing a Dryad Arbor, though. Age is fine. Depths is scary. But I do have Solitude Seasoned Dungeoneer available to me. And I know my opponent's last card, so I don't actually need to Thoughtseize them. I mean, we're bashing in with Grief. I'm just short here of being able to play my stuff. I think it's okay. Pithing Needle occurs. Why is Pithing Needle still in their deck? Do they think I'm going to have Wasteland with this mana base still? Ah, Touch the Spirit Realm. Okay, that's very reasonable. I'm not playing that, but that's a heads up play playing around that. Okay, so there is the Boseiju. You know, everything that my opponent's got going on now. Not doing a very good job at drawing mana. It potentially doesn't matter. Like, my opponent is already at 13. I'll make it 10. Call it a turn. Okay, they are not going in on creating a creature. They're going to try to find something like a crop rotation to go off with protection first. That's totally reasonable. And they are holding the Dryad Arbor back. Let's cast some Dark Rituals, friends. Dark Rit. believe at this point I Thoughtseize my opponent to see if Crop Rotation is the card that is in their hand. Is another Dark Depths. That's fine. I will cast another Dark Ritual into Passageway Seer. This is going to take the initiative. I'll grab a basic Plains, throw that into play, and go ahead and attack on in with a Grief. Opponent goes to 7 at end step because I have the initiative. I get a +1/+1 counter. Alright, so my opponent is going to go ahead and go for Ye Old Tentacle Monster. I'll get my +1/+1 counter, and then we can go ahead and Solitude this out of the way. It does give my opponent 20 life, so like, that's a thing. But I'm hoping by the time that another Merit Lodge happens, I am well above 20 life, and I can just kind of attack through it without it being that big of a deal. Now, my opponent could top deck, like, exactly another Thespian stage here, or something like that. But outside of that, I think I'm good. So we are going to go to Forge. I'm going to put these counters on my lifelinker here. City of Traders would be my preferred draw. Nope, that's fine. Am I willing to attack with both and trade off the initiative? That seems fine. I don't care if my opponent gets a basic land. So this puts them to 19. I get another +1/+1 counter on Passageway Seer. I assumed Dryad Arbor was going to go ahead and come in and rumble. That's fine. Again, a basic land is not going to be the deal breaker here between life and death. It's just fully whether or not my opponent top decks a tutor. Alright, another Seasoned Dungeoneer. Do I care if Dryad Arbor gets +1/+1 counters? Lightly, but probably not enough for this to be like the thing that swings the match. My opponent's probably just dead next turn. So this allows me to trap my opponent, putting them to 5, meaning that Passageway Seer is lethal on its own next turn. Alright, the old manual remove the Dark Depths counters. I respect it. So unless my opponent draws like another blocker or something, they do need to just hold the Dryad Arbor back to block Passageway Seer. Bojuka Bog is fine. Okay, yeah, they are forced to hold Dryad Arbor back for these attacks. Archives gets to draw me a card, a White Plume, and a Chrome Mox. I believe here that it is correct to go ahead and take the initiative pre-combat. Let's just get rid of a Passageway Seer here. Let's go ahead and play another White Plume. We'll do Throne of the Dead 3. We'll look at a whole bunch of cards here. And Solitude presumably ends this game. I just Solitude Dryad Arbor, and then I have what is hopefully lethal attacks. I guess Seasoned Dungeoneer also does the same thing. Wait. Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, Wizard. Tiefling, Warlock doesn't count. Yeah, so I guess I do want Solitude. Alright, so Solitude will put my opponent to 6. Okay, and that is good enough. Yeah, Warlock not counting for Seasoned Dungeoneer because it's not one of the D&D character types or classes is a little funny to me. I think I like more or less how I've sideboarded here. The early grief with Malakir Rebirth was quite strong. I don't think I'm excited about this hand. Like, it has a Thoughtseize for disruption, but I don't play an initiative creature quickly, which is what my deck wants to do. Oh, that's awkward. So it's... No, it's not. It is awkward. So it's Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Seasoned Dungeoneer, White Plume, Adventurer, get a black source, be able to play a Grief on turn 2. This is probably good enough. No, I can't play a Grief on turn 2. Gonna be a white card under this. Thurin Orb. Absolutely. Well, Ephemerate's not bad. I probably put Ephemerate under Chrome Mox. And I just play initiative card into initiative card. Alright, Ephemerate's under there. Ancient Tomb. White Plume. I believe I get a basic Swamp here. And we'll pass it on over to my opponent. The Zurin Orb can buy them a little bit of time against just like the raw power that my start can have. But White Plume will become a 5/5 due to Forge, and then Seasoned Dungeoneer will get involved, maybe making it attack for 6 this turn. I will race a Mirage just straight up some portion of the time here. So we will Forge my creature. Woohoo, buddy. Rub land. Take 2 for the Seasoned Dungeoneer. We advance further into the Undercity, going to Trap. Trap my opponent for 5. Attack my opponent for at least 5. Alright, I've drawn another land. I do get 5 damage in. So my opponent is at 10 life. I have 8 damage showing and 2 explores. I'll also have... Yeah, so if both explorers hit next turn, my opponent is in theory dead, although the Zurin Orb means that's probably not actually the case. Alright, there is a Green Sun, which can get a Dryad Arbor as a potential blocker, although it's not actually going to accomplish that for my opponent. The Seasoned Dungeoneer is cracked. Alright, I get a bonus card here. Ooh, and Solitude. I am not currently interested in playing Solitude. I just want to play Seasoned Dungeoneer, go to Throne of the Dead 3, and see what happens there. Alright, Seasoned Dungeoneer. Go Throne of the Dead 3. Grief sounds good. Solitude also sounds good, though. I don't have to kill my opponent this turn. Killing them next turn is pretty easy as well. Alright, so let's Solitude, target the Dryad Arbor. My opponent will probably sack it to their Zurin Orb. Yep. Now I'll go ahead and go to combat. Crash in with both of these creatures. One Seasoned Dungeoneer will target White Plume. The other will target the attacking Seasoned Dungeoneer. This is turn 3, by the way. It's turn 3, and I am going and attacking with 2 initiative creatures. That can just go into my graveyard. That's not going to matter this game. Like, I am attacking for 9. My opponent has lost a land. I have 4 creatures in play. This is pretty brutal. This is going to sound weird. I'm going to play another Ancient Tomb just in case something like a Tabernacle gets involved here. I have now completed a dungeon, so I get to untap everything. And I don't know what my opponent is supposed to do here. Urza Saga. It seems kind of like we're done to me, but I've been wrong before. I will be holding up Grief and Solitude here. I guess I'll just attack. I can't think of anything that I have to play around. So we'll do White Plume with 1. We'll do a Seasoned Dungeoneer with another. Swords can go on top. I would be totally fine drawing that if we go to another turn for some reason. Okay, Crop Rotation is fine. Yeah, Glacial Chasm keeps my opponent alive, but not for very long. So they have to sacrifice a land here in order to stay alive. And Glacial Chasm prevents all damage that would be dealt to you, very notably. Does not prevent loss of life, which means that my opponent is dead to trap in the not too distant future. We'll go ahead and move to my second main phase. I am fine paying a little bit of life for a Grief. And we'll just take anything else out of my opponent's hand that seems like it can put them further ahead. Force of Vigor isn't important. Pithing Needle isn't important. Shadow Spear, I guess, is. I'll take the Shadow Spear. My opponent says I kept a 2-lander just needing 1 more land in the first 3 turns. Yeah, that's fair. Alright, so they go down 1 to keep Glacial Chasm around. And like, I know what they're working with. Name Abandon Hope. Touch the Spirit Realm. Again, acceptable. Alright, so I will go ahead and Forge so that they die next turn. We will get more life from a lifelinker if I do actually get to connect. We'll go ahead and draw the Swords to Plowshares that's on top of my deck. Make a land drop, and pass the turn. Or actually, I guess it's still fine to attack, right? Because then I get to fix the top of my library. Yeah, he's on tap anyway. Okay, yeah, my opponent is done with me. Alright, we have gotten the GGs, and we are now 2-0. Okay, so this is a hand where I can cast a Solitude and Malakar Rebirth it and have a Solitude in play on turn 1. But given that I don't have a guarantee that my opponent is playing creatures, I think I would rather just mulligan this one. Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Ephemerate, White Plume on turn 1. That is solidly a keep. I believe Dark Ritual is the card that goes back here. It just doesn't quite work with the stuff that's in hand. And I'm treating Malakar Rebirth as a protection spell for White Plume against some things. Alright, seems like our opponent's a fan of the channel. Let's see if we can put on a good show for future them. Oh, they played the Phoenix deck a while back on the that I played against. Ignoble Hierarch. Not 100% sure what that is going to be indicative of. It's probably something that has endurance in it. Like maybe Grist, a green sun package. Could be something of like the Nick Fit or Applejacks variety. I basically have my colors covered here. I'm gonna grab a plains. Aiga. So maybe Minsk and Boo is also involved. What the fuck are you doing? The fuck? Oh no. Oh fuck. Oh my god, why? I need an adult. Oh my god. Oh, what the fuck? How am I going to win? I need a black initiative creature to block that. Oh, it's got first strike? We're going to Lost Well. I am not the aggro deck anymore. Let's scry. Okay, that is a black initiative card. I needed that. I will bottom Amaria's Call. I will top Vicious Battlerager. My opponent is saying that they brewed this specifically to beat initiative decks. I'm feeling it, friend. I'm feeling it. So let's play the Vicious Battlerager. Luckily, I do have some creatures that aren't just like fully dead to this. We will continue up the right side here, making the treasure token. Then I have Malakar Rebirth up. My attack in is no good here with a pro-white first strike creature on the other side of the battlefield. This is going to be a weird game of Magic. This is going to be a really weird game of Magic. Alright, another Bayou. Okay, there's the Minsk and Boo that I predicted. With Trample or Haste. Okay, we can't just stack up counters on a Rager. This is sweet. Like, I like what my opponent's up to over there. Are we staring at each other, or are you coming in? Okay, they're coming in with a 3/3, so that can force my Vicious Battlerager to shrink. I think that's fine. I just don't want my opponent to take the initiative here. Now, there's going to be some negative counters on this, so I have achieved negative power status for my so-called Vicious Battlerager. My opponent's got this 4/4 just chilling defensively. Tempting to ruin my day. I do get a skeleton. Oh, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Leave up black for Malakar Rebirth. Barbarian? Not Barbarian. Let's see, we gotta talk, man. We gotta talk. Alright, Seasoned Dungeoneer. I will take the initiative. We're going to the throne. You get to look at the top 10 here. I can Solitude the Minsk and Boo. Or sorry, I can Solitude the Boo. And then some portion of the time kill Minsk and Boo when I attack. I think I like that than going one step deeper in the initiative here. Alright. Solitude, Boo. And now we Yu-Gi-Oh! Heart of the Cards. Hope that my Explore is successful here. Attack Minsk and Boo. This is a big moment. Fuck, it was a land. Ah. Alright, we knock it to 1 loyalty at least. My -2 power here was a little rough. I get to untap my creatures. I do still have this Malakar Rebirth as like a thing that I can do. And I can probably take out the Minsk and Boo on my turn. Yep, this is expected. I have a big butt over here though. Oh, ho, ho, okay. That's another one. So, my opponent's going the sacrifice a creature route. Where is this damage going? is going at the vicious Battlerager. Can't let you do that, Star Fox. Now I'll go ahead and return this. Going a step deeper as far as the initiative is concerned. Pick up my final basic land. It is a basic plains. Inkmoth Nexus. It's evasive too. Okay, I've forced my opponent to hold back their creature. And I'll consider that a win. I'm definitely going to the Forge. I guess I want this on the White Plume. The White Plume can attack alone. In some cases, if that's what I decide I want to do. I also can just swing a bunch of creatures out. A Passageway Seer. So I can go to Trap here. How much damage do I actually have if I go up my opponent's face? 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 19. But my opponent will actually block some of that. So let's assume they block Solitude. 5, 8, 12, 13, 18 after Trap. Let's just keep the board in check here. Let's take this one step at a time here. Let's kill the Minskin Boo. Ephemerate. Let's assume that is good. I will top that. I hope I don't just die to Infect in one turn. I haven't seen, like, just Invigorate Berserk type stuff yet. It doesn't mean it's not in there, though. Alright, Minskin Boo is dead. Drop a land. 4 mana for Passageway Seer. Taking the initiative yet again. Wrap my opponent for 5 life. And then Passageway Seer gets a +1/+1 counter at end of turn. Next turn I probably just swing out and use Ephemerate for Trixies in one capacity or another. Duress is fine. Duress being in my opponent's hand makes me a little bit nervous. That makes it more likely that they might just combo kill me. But, like, I just have blockers. I guess, like, Inkmoth can technically kill me. Alright, it's animated. Do your thing. Scale up. Will be 7 after the trigger. I will die to a further pump spell. Yeah, there's a Kicked Vines of the Vastwood. Okay. I put up a hell of a fight there. It didn't quite do it. Could have gotten more aggressive with an attack on my turn, but I don't think I could have possibly made lethal there. Ugh. So this on Phyrexian is incredibly good in the matchup. Towards the Plowshares is probably good. Thoughtseize is probably playable as well. So I've got 6 cards that I can be thinking about. My go-to card to cut has been Vicious Battlerager. I believe that's going to remain true. It's a little hard for me to board in more than 4 cards here, but I do think that I need the Thoughtseizes. Thoughtseize would kind of be coming at the expense of something like Grief or a way to flicker Grief, though. And Flickering Grief and Flickering Solitude seems pretty solid. I am going to go down Ephemerates, though, I think. Malakar Rebirths count as lands in some cases, so I'm going to keep those over Ephemerates, even though Ephemerate is kind of better. I will absolutely keep this hand, given how good Plague Engineer on potentially Hamster or Phyrexian can be as this matchup goes long. So this is not my ideal hand, but I think this is perfectly fine. Like, I have the Solitude Malakar Rebirth combo if I feel like that's a thing that I need to do as well. You may Thoughtseize me. Fortunately, that does take the Plague Engineer, which was kind of what I was hoping to do with the early turns of the game, but they levy. As expected. I'm not super expecting Wasteland from my opponent, given that they're a 3-color mana base that also has colorless lands already, so I'm just going to go ahead and fetch out a Scrub land preemptively. And we will just go ahead and play this as a tapped land, call it a turn, and I get to start slamming initiative creatures next turn. So why can't my Tiefling Warlock be best friends with Seasoned Dungeoneer, huh? Mechanically, the answer is that, like, this is using the same thing that Party used. But it just feels weird. There is an Inkmoth and a Glistener Elf, which is a pretty gross duo. I will just attempt to get this out of the way now, and it's probably resolving. Like, I accept that that is bait, and I will eat the tasty bait. Given that I now have a second Seasoned Dungeoneer, I am fine playing the first, and I will still have Pitch Solitude as a thing that I am able to do. Although I will be picking up a second Plains here, so that I can hard cast it next turn if I don't need to do something with it this turn. The nice thing about Seasoned Dungeoneer is that, like, due to the protection from creatures, I can just crash in through various infect creatures without having to worry about it too much. This is Forge time. Let's make this creature big. I've got a 5/6. I'd probably just play Plains this turn. So with multiple Seasoned Dungeoneers, that doesn't do what I want it to, right? Because I would just target these things. They would gain protection from creatures. That would fizzle the ability in multiples. That seems correct to me. I'm probably just playing Passageway Seer this turn. Then I play a second Seasoned Dungeoneer next turn. I hold this up for Pitchcast. Alright, that all conceptually checks out to me. We're on a City of Traders. Funnel will go to 14. I will go ahead and drop the Passageway Seer. This then allows me to trap my opponent, putting them to 9. And then I'll go ahead and just make a land drop here while holding up Solitude, and I'll take my +1/+1 counter at end of turn. Okay. More mana is kind of scary for my opponent because things like Kicked Vines of the Vastwood start to become a thing that matters. I am unsure if I should block with Passageway Seer because it's probably the difference between lethal and not lethal for next turn. I also probably try to hold off on a Solitude for as long as I can. Alright, there is an animated Ink Moth, so it is go time. We're scaling up. I think I just accept that. I go after a protection spell because this is not lethal as of right now. Yeah, I just take this hit. Alright, that is the Berserk. I'll go ahead and Solitude, pitching Amaria's Call. Take out the Ink Moth. This does put my opponent back up to 14 life, but I don't think that's going to matter. They get to draw a bonus card here, and then I do this. I will go to Throne of the Dead 3, look 10 cards deep, take a Solitude, take that Glistener Elf out of the way, go to combat. I'll attack in with these. That can stay on top. Now, second one of these is indeed removed from the stack because it doesn't have a legal target because my creature has protection from creatures after the first one. My opponent goes to 6. I'll drop a land, pass the turn, and get my +1/+1 counter. With there not really being hasty infect creatures, I imagine that's the end of this game. So now we get to ask the question, like, will my opponent's deck that is built to beat the initiative actually beat the initiative? Admittedly, my build is very much not stock here. Turn 1, grief something out of my opponent's hand. Turn 2, white plume. If I draw a black source, I get to just Thoughtseize on turn 1 instead. And if I draw a Chromox, this hand improves a lot. If I draw any land, this hand improves a lot. I think this one is a keep. The white plume is going to get me that land no matter what. It's possible this one's just a little bit too clunky since it doesn't answer a creature while being on the draw on turn 1. But hopefully my opponent plays a ramp creature rather than a Glistener Elf on 1. Okay, yeah, this is the sort of thing that I want to see here. Dark Ritual. Not quite what I'm looking for. Is Dark Ritual better than Thoughtseize? I don't think so. I might Thoughtseize my opponent next turn, depending if I draw a swamp. So let's grief pitching the Dark Ritual. Oh, it is a slow hand from my opponent. I will take their Thoughtseize, as the duress effects can't hit my creatures. I'll play a Plains and pass. Now they do have an infect creature. It's going to be a slow one. My opponent can technically duress me twice, but I don't think that's something that they're going to want to do. Alright, Thoughtseize is gone. I'll get attacked for 1 here. Ooh, my opponent drew a Glistener Elf. This is a good draw for me. Not like one of my best draws or anything, but it's a good draw. I think access to initial black is better than access to white for Solitude specifically. Let's call it a turn here. Forge on my opponent's Inkmoth Nexus in particular is awkward. That's going to be very good and very fast. Alright, there's the animation. My opponent gets to attack in for 2 with Exalted, and then they will get a basic land from their deck from the Undercity. Oh, that's a nice looking forest. Alright, and they are passing the turn. I think I just attack with my 3/3. Will my opponent chump block? If I think... Yeah, my opponent says, oops, forgot to play the land. Yeah. If I attack with my 3/3 and my opponent does not block, I get to take the initiative and then go 1 deeper. And I like the idea of that. I think I'm going to do that despite the fact that I could be chump blocked. Let's crash in for 3. Okay, yeah, so my opponent is going for the chump block. I will take that value. And then I will play Passageway Seer this turn to not let them know that Seasoned Dungeoneer is coming. So let's go to Forge. I'm going to forge up my black creature in case the Phyrexian Crusader comes around. And then we'll tick up yet another counter when it comes to end step here. Inkmoth Nexus with a couple of +1/+1 counters is horrifying. My opponent's going to animate that, crash in for 2 because of Exalted, and then they get to forge it up. And the +1/+1 counters are very relevant here. I'm not technically dead to it next turn, but I am 1 away from dead to it. Alright. So this is a similar turn to last turn, where I get to decide whether or not I want to play Seasoned Dungeoneer pre-combat. I think the answer is I don't. I don't think my opponent can block with Ignoble Hierarch. So I will attack in with both of my creatures as is. Yeah, my opponent does not block. I will go to Trap, throwing them for 5, down to 7. Post-combat, I need to leave up Malakar Rebirth, which means playing City of Traders here. So play City of Traders, take 2 off Ancient Tomb, play the Seasoned Dungeoneer. I get to draw a card. Solitude, but no white creature to pitch. Alright. Someone's dead in this turn cycle. Unfortunately, most of the time I think it's me. Because a pump spell of any kind on this Inkmoth just does me in. My opponent has 2 unknown cards. One of them could be... oh, well, they're taking the Malakar Rebirth. I don't think it does me any good to play that. I don't think it does me any good to play that. Toxic Deluge for X equals 6. I guess technically could do it. I guess if I'm willing to lose 2 life, it comes at very little cost to just do this. Targeting Seasoned Dungeoneer, maybe? Then in case some sort of crazy sweeper happens, that creature lives. Alright. I'm at 17. I'm F6'd. I don't have the white creature to pair with this Solitude. You have it. Alright, this is the Exalted. It is 4 damage. Invigorate kills me. Berserk kills me. Kicked Vines kills me. Kicked Vines kills me. Oh, we were so close there. GG's. Okay, this is round 4. We're 2-1. I don't like my hand here. It doesn't really do anything. Whereas I do like this one. It plays a White Plume Adventurer on turn 1, and in the not too distant future can back it up with Malakar Rebirth. And we'll just throw away one of the 2 Crumb Mocks here. Alright, Scalding Tarn. We are potentially playing against Delver here. Daze will be pretty good against this hand in a couple of different ways. That said, I think I'm just fucking jamming. I don't know, if I wait a turn, I can try to be tricksy with Malakir Rebirth. Malakir Rebirth, rather. I think I'm actually going to wait a turn here. Given that I don't have a second initiative creature to play as follow-up, and given that this dies to Lightning Bolt, it seems okay to wait a turn. I can also wait to see if I just have something worse that I can put under Chrome Mox. So let's cast this Chrome Mox. Imprint of Solitude. Play Ancient Tomb. Ask the White Plume Adventurer. As resolved, we begin this game. I probably just grab basic planes here. And we'll call it a turn. Uh-huh. Lightning bolt me. Oh, it is a trop. Oh, hoo-hoo. Shouldn't have waited against this deck. So there are about to be 2 incoming rhinos here, as my opponent is going to cascade into crashing footfalls. My opponent's removal is also exile based, so Malakir Rebirth is a little bit worse here. I'm in a lot of fucking trouble. Like my creature doesn't line up well versus my opponent's creatures, and we're gonna trade the initiative back and forth. And they are going to be the one who comes out ahead in that, as their creatures are starting out at the higher baseline. They have a second island. Mom, the rhinos are fucking bullying me. What is that? Is that Fire Ice? No, it's Dead Gone. Okay. With 4 rhinos on board, I am comfortable tapping out. So Deafening Silence is awkward against Shardless Agent in particular, but fine versus Violent Outburst. I'm not great here. I am not gonna lie to you. Thoughtseize and Grief together can maybe punch a hole in the early game, but we've got things like Minsk and Boo to worry about as the game goes on. I can Plague Engineer on Hamster or technically on Rhino. I have things I have to worry about. I'm probably going to cut Vicious Battlerager here. That gives me the Thoughtseizes and the Plague Engineers, and then I have to decide whether or not I want to do something like cut some Ephemerates, or Deafening Silence, or Swords to Plowshares. Deafening Silence is just like so embarrassing versus the fair side of my opponent's deck, though, and the fact that it just completely misses Shardless Agent is rough. It's not like Solitude's insane either. Which is better, Solitude and Ephemerating it, or Swords to Plowshares just being a card that I won't have to pitch something to it? I also maybe play Deafening Silence on the play. Every time I take out an Ephemerate, it just makes my grief worse. Let's try something like this when I'm on the play. Okay, I can play a turn 2 White Plume Adventurer. I would rather play something on turn 1 in this matchup. I am scared. This is a better hand, I think. I get rid of the Solitude. I lead on Thoughtseize. I play turn 2 Dark Ritual Grief. And I can grief yet another time if I draw a black card. This is fine for a 6. Alright, so keep, pitch Solitude. And let's see if we can punch a hole. My opponent has 2 different ways to get rhinos into play. I'm going to take the Shardless Agent here since it pitches to Force of Will. And then I hope that I can Dark Ritual Grief next turn. It's a little awkward if my opponent draws a blue card, but don't think I want to go down the extra card here after I've already mulliganed with like no initiative creature in sight to snowball this game in my favor. Alright, we'll just kind of keep track of what's in my opponent's hand over there. And our line is kind of predetermined this turn. Dark Ritual Grief. Did you really draw a second Spirit Guide? Huge tilt. Yeah, that is a second Spirit Guide. So I get super punished by not going for it immediately. Alright. I mean, we lose to that. I accept it as, like, I don't think I can go down the card and just, like, not present any clock at all. Yeah, I'm at 10 already because of Thoughtseize. Yeah, like, I can grief again, and then just be dead on board. I mean, that's unfortunate. I don't regret it. GG's. A bit of a weird opener for the final round here. I can play a turn 2 initiative creature, which is, like, fine. But I might be better off just mulliganing this hand. As it is now, it goes probably turn 1 Ancient Tomb or Amaria's Call, pass. Turn 2 Imprint, Ancient Tomb, cast this, and I'm kind of all in on it. I can probably get a 6-card hand that plays a better card than this on either turn 1 or turn 2. I think I'm going to try to be picky here. This is a worse hand than the previous one. I will go to 5. This is bad. I don't really feel like this one's playable. My mana doesn't work out well to do cool Malakir Rebirth stuff, right? Yeah, not really. Let's go to 4. I've probably lost game 1. That said, I think mulling to 3 is better than this, because land, Ancient Tomb, Initiative card is just better than this hand by a lot. Hey, land, Ancient Tomb, Initiative card. Not the perfect Initiative card or anything, but this is solid. We will keep the Seasoned Dungeoneer over the Passageway Seer. A nice little rainbow. Oh my gosh, is it 60 card Death and Taxes? I haven't seen that in a hot minute. I am going to get wastelanded into oblivion, and it is gonna suck. Even Port is just bad enough here. Wonder if my opponent has initiative cards. I forget who. Somebody sent me a 5-0 initiative deck list that had, sorry, a 5-0 Death and Taxes deck list that had, I think it was either 6 or 8 initiative cards in it. I am pretty confident that I have lost this game. However, I am not going to concede until like my opponent puts me in the position where I am effectively actually dead, because Death and Taxes is pretty bad at actually closing out the game. And if my opponent kept a clunker, I can draw out of it from a 3-card situation, and Seasoned Dungeoneer can take over combat. There's also times where my opponent just gets greedy and doesn't Rashad Port me, and I can slip through. Yeah, fine. I think once something of the caliber of like a Cauldra is in play, though, I'm comfortable just throwing in the towel. My opponent with an upkeep Aether Vial activation. This reads to me like Thalia, and then they're going to Rashad Port me after I lose the capability of casting a 1-mana spell in response. That's fine. Let's play a tapped land. I do kind of want to know, like, what the upside of playing their 60-card build is right now. Generally speaking, the community consensus is that the Yori and D&T builds are better than the 60-card builds. But like, if you're playing 60 cards, you probably have a specific reason why you want to be doing that. I would love to figure out what that reason is. I will just be passing the turn here. I'm not going to grief my opponent immediately. I would rather save the grief for an Ephemerate. Alright, Spirit of the Labyrinth is fine. I wonder if they're on, like, some weird shit, like Hushbringers, or, like, Strict Proctors or something. Or, like, maybe those with, like, Urza Saga and Phyrexian Dreadnoughts or something. I am going to cast a Grief before my opponent kills me. Like, I want to know what their nonsense is. My opponent plays Stoneforge into Grief, Stoneforge into Cauldra, am I dead? 5, 8, 9, 10, no. I can wait one more turn on the Grief. Alright, no 2-drop end of turn. Another land. Another 5 damage. This turn, I will cast the Grief just purely to get more information. I mean, once I mulled to 3, like, the game was pretty much over anyway. But, like, it was turn 6. I had time to draw out of it. Chromox, Imprint, Passageway Seer. Dark Ritual costs 2 mana right now, so I can't actually play my thing. Okay, yeah, so let's do this. Chromox would also be taxed. Let's see if there's anything fun over there. No, there's nothing fun over there. Okay, I'm comfortable conceding. I'm taking 5 damage, and I'm still going to get double ported down. Even if I play this, I only have 2 mana available next turn. If I draw an Ancient Tomb, it's not good enough. If I draw a City of Traders, put a Seasoned Dungeoneer into play, I still don't think I'm getting there. Okay, what do I want to do? Plague Engineer is very good. Swords to Plowshares is very good. Thoughtseize and Serenity are technically playable, but I'm not excited about either one of them. Malakir Rebirth is definitely worse versus random exile-based removal. That said, it's still a land on the backside. I don't know how many of those I want to cut. I'm sitting here thinking about Grief. It doesn't rumble super well in combat. It's got some form of evasion, but my opponent will very easily be able to block that after a couple of turns. But the ability to take equipment from Stoneforge Mystic specifically is very solid. Not great at answering equipment. I can board in Serenity for Vial and equipment. I don't know that that's really good, though, because it's going to sweep my Chromox, which is pretty important in the matchup. Grief, Vicious Battlerager and Malachar Rebirth are the things that are on the chopping block, and I'm just trying to figure out numbers. I think I just keep the highest density of initiative cards and hope that they bury my opponents. I think I'm just going to keep all of these as lands and go 4 for 4, getting rid of Grief, but keeping Ephemerates for value. Deck, I don't want to go out like this. This plays a turn 2 initiative creature, which I think I just have to accept as good enough here. I will keep this pitching an Ephemerate. I don't need to make the decision about what goes under the Chrome Mox on turn 1. I can wait on that. As of right now, the answer is Vicious Battlerager. I wouldn't expect my opponent to play something like Deafening Silence, so play Scrubland and pass the turn. Yeah, that's fine. I wanted that to get wastelanded over the Ancient Tomb. The Ancient Tomb is way more important right now. So I don't have a 3-mana initiative card, which means I am comfortable passing the turn here. I need to spike any land, so roughly 50% of my draws. That counts. I'm going so much more all in than I would like to right now. That's going to be Vicious Rager under one, the Ephemerate under another, and then we start doing this nonsense. Take the initiative. I get a basic. I think I'd pick Plains because of things like Amaria's Call and Hardcasting Solitude. Do get to make my land drop here. We'll see if my opponent has Swords to Plowshares. And they do not. I am going to have a giant lifelinky creature. We'll see if that's good against what my opponent is doing. Rishadenport is too slow to matter here. Like, it can absolutely take me off of some cards. It can keep me from casting this, but my opponent is tying up their mana in this, and they're not answering the Passageway Seer. They're taking 5 this turn, then 6, then 7, just from that card alone. My opponent's been sitting here with some mana in their pool for a little while, so they've been deciding on what to do. And it is Stoneforge. Getting Cauldra? We're getting Cauldra. So now I have a First Strike, Trample, Indestructible Haste creature that I have to worry about. I believe answering that is more important than trying to kill my opponent quickly. So we're going to go the Lost Well and Scry. We're looking for Solitude to answer Stoneforge Mystic. Did not hit. Or we can hit Grief. Swing and a miss. I will crash in for my 3 points of life-linking damage. Now, we can just find a Solitude later. Like, I could maybe do something like complete the Undercity and use that to dig for Solitude. Do I Arena this so that they can't wait to play the Cauldra until my turn? Probably not. I probably just stash. And I'll take some +1/+1 counters. Like, if they just give me a turn where they just, like, don't put in Cauldra until my turn and they don't attack, it just gives me a chance to tick these up with one more counter. And Treasure Token plays around getting wastelanded or ported a little bit better. Yeah. Like, you can do your Cauldra thing, and I will crash back for 7 damage. Oh, they are considering not attacking. But if you are not going to attack, you should have waited on this because of like, sorcery speed removal spells, for example. That is a Scrubland. I will just make my land drop, pass the turn, pick these 2 up. These Passageway Seers are sweet. I also technically could throw a decent-sized body in front of Cauldra to not allow them to take the initiative so that I always get to Throne of the Dead 3. But given that I have 3 reasonable attackers, that doesn't seem great. Another port from my opponent. They're not able to cast white cards yet. Alright, we're staring at each other, which means that I get to Throne of the Dead 3, unless they have something like a Containment Priest. Yeah, you may tap my land. Thought I had summoned the Containment Priest for a second there, and I got worried. Seasoned Dungeoneer is fantastic. Oh, these are Tiefling Warlocks. Are you just a skeleton? You're just a skeleton? Seasoned Dungeoneer is still really good. I just don't get to do things quite as immediately as I might like to. I venture into the Undercity again. Grab a basic swamp this time. Another Passageway Seer. Again, this only triggers on clerics, rogues, warriors, and wizards. Let's go ahead and do this. Retake the initiative. I think I just forge up Seasoned Dungeoneer. It's at least temporarily hexproof. And we'll keep growing all these passageway seers. There's a Swords to Plowshares on a Menace Skeleton. That's fine. Not going on the Seasoned Dungeoneer, notably, which is nice. This Cauldron is basically in a position where it can't really attack. Yeah, it's just stuck on the defensive while I'm ticking up the Undercity. You may absolutely port me, friend. Okay. I will trap you. Down to 12. Draw a card. The White Plume Adventurer. I will play it. Go to Archives. Draw a card. It's an Ancient Tomb. Am I at lethal damage yet? This is blocked, this is blocked. They take 9. I'm not at lethal damage yet. I will be next turn. We'll just attack with this one. Get protection from creatures. Ephemerate is great. Send that to the top. And my opponent is done with me. Alright, yeah, we are going to complete the Undercity again next turn. So I haven't really seen anything that indicates to me why my opponent should be playing 60-card D&T yet. On the draw, I do feel kind of like I need more answers to Stoneforge Mystic, because like I just powered through it this time, but I was on the play. So I think on the draw, I want at least Thoughtseize, if not Grief. On the draw, Dark Ritual gets a little bit worse. I cut Vicious Battlerager. My black count is going down for Grief. Ephemerate win more? I don't know, I kind of want to double grief my opponent on turn 1. Maybe I don't Plague Engineer my opponent when I'm on the draw. Although, like, answering Mother of Runes is still a thing, I suppose. Let's plan on these going out. Maybe I go down some Ephemerates. Again, I still think I keep these. That can give me the grief and the thought seizes that I'm looking for to disrupt an early Stoneforged-based way of pulling ahead. This doesn't have a black land that I need to grief and Malakar rebirth it. I will ship this one. This hand is reasonable. I lead on Marsh Flats on turn 1, holding up Swords to Plowshares for Stoneforge Mystic. On turn 2, I do some... I probably actually have to put something under this on turn 1. Anyway, this is going to be a keep. I think I get rid of my Ephemerate, because this can be something that goes under here, as well as a land drop if things get a little weird. So I am happy enough with this. As a Rishadan port, Aether Vial hand. I don't want to get ported, which means I'm playing fetch land this turn. I have to make my Chrome Mox decision right now, because my opponent could play Thalia here. I think it's Malakir Rebirth. Doesn't let me Swords to Plowshares immediately. But Amaria's Call is at least making white mana. Okay, that's fine. If they attempt to port me in my upkeep. Nope. Cool, cool. So let's fetch. There's going to be a basic plains here, so they cannot be wastelanded. I will do my mana efficient play here of playing Seasoned Dungeoneer. And then I will just be finding another basic plains. There is literally no reason to make that play right now. That informs my decisions and takes you off of 3 mana plays on your turn. Alright. Grab the other basic plains. I've already made my land drop for turn. It's only turn 2. We'll call it a turn there. The thing that can kind of beat me from here is end of turn, Vial in, Mother of Runes into Solitude or otherwise remove Seasoned Dungeoneer and get in damage with Mother of Runes. I've got a Swords to Plowshares for if my opponent gets aggressive with Mother of Runes. I guess also I do have to worry about like a Stoneforge coming in or something. Thalia is fine. I now can't remove a Stoneforge off a Vial easily. So let's see if I can work towards murdering my opponent instead. Ephemerate is good, but not immediately. It will be absolutely fine later, though. So let's crash in. I've got protection. Get to draw that Ancient Tomb. My opponent goes to 14. A little awkward that I don't have, or no, I guess it's not awkward that I don't have the bonus white because of the Thalia attacks. So let's go ahead and white Plume. I could goad my opponent's Thalia if I want, but I think it's just better to remain aggressive. Because I drop my opponent to 9 here. And that's 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer hits. Assuming that things continue to go my way. Which, it feels like my opponent needs to have something like a Stoneforge Mystic here for their hand to have been keepable. And they're tapping the vial. Was I correct? No, they just kept a hand that was probably not keepable, and I win because of it. Alright, so we ended up with a 3-2, and it was a 3-2 that I felt really good about. One of the decks that we lost to was very specifically designed to beat an initiative deck, and it only narrowly did so, and I had a lot of play against it. Pulling up the deck list one more time, I want to take a look at one card that is not on Magic Online yet, Ravenloft Adventurer. It really should take the place of Vicious Battlerager in this deck list, I believe. It is a 3/4 base creature, which in most cases outside of something like, I don't know, a Phyrexian Crusader is probably going to be better. And although its ability isn't particularly strong, I think higher base starting stats matters a lot. And when that ability is relevant because your opponents are like chump blocking or whatever, that is a nice way to deal those last couple of points of damage. So this is a deck list that I think is actively good right now and can be improved a little bit later. I do think that Vicious Battlerager is the weak link in the deck list. And something that I'm thinking about is like, is messing around with Grief better than just playing another 4 initiative cards? Like, can I still be good enough against combo decks by just racing them that removing Grief from the deck list is acceptable to just play more initiative cards? And at that point, like, do you also want to play some Lotus Petals if you are going to play that many initiative cards? There's things to think about here. Generally speaking, like, this one gets a huge thumbs up to me. I like the way that this feels. This feels like a solid choice for an event. And if you're kind of looking to break initiative mirrors, playing more initiative creatures so that you just top deck them again and again and again and again feels pretty good. One of our opponents named Touch the Spirit Realm with Pithing Needle. I think that's also something that you can think about for this deck list. Although, like, with Ephemerate and Malakir Rebirth already in the deck, I don't know that you need it. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. It helps out a lot. If you have any thoughts about deck building with this sort of stuff, I would love to read them. Have a great rest of the day. See ya.